Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another session of Ramblings of a Madman with myself as host. So let's dive right in, shall we? And see what we have. Word document. I just realised let's not dive immediately in because I've got to open Word. There we are. But once again, we shall be going through some notes. And we're going back in time this time to October 2020. So questions. In a system that allows and facilitates, oh my god, one of these days I'll spell things correctly, and facilitates the concentration of resources, is it best to try and accumulate a lot in order to stop other more unscrupulous people from hoarding them? And if so, what's the best way to do this without becoming said developing unscrupulousness ourselves? I think the main part of that is if so. Maybe we just opt out of the whole trying to accumulate a ton of resources to ourselves. Maybe that's the key. What's an acceptable / sustainable level of contribution versus consumption in terms of time, energy, efficiency, and resources, all of the aforementioned being resources, of course? Is my current level of consumption sustainable? Same with contribution. I think that's probably why I'm doing these kind of things, because I don't feel like this is, but I don't know what to go into right now. I need to retrain and do stuff. Retail is not my calling, shall we say. I've done my time, I think. I've done my time. One of these days we'll figure out. Here's my current perception of sentience, conducive to peace and contentment, or war / conflict. Maybe not sentience, but current perception of the in group. We'll just call it the in group. Gorup, the in group. Yeah. So kind of the circle of care, as previously mentioned. Are my values conducive to peace or war, peace or conflict, health and longevity, or suffering and premature death? Nice. Yeah, the further I go back in terms of my notes, the more and more I notice that they are pretty fucking miserable sometimes. Well, they don't beat around the bush, at least. How does my way of life influence other people's contribution, consumption, perception, and values? Positive or negative, or bits of both? So this is essentially vicarious contribution, consumption, and yeah, you could say compassion, maybe, just because it begins with a C. And how long will humans last if we continue to live with similar / higher consumption levels? At what point will the population tank? And that is the end of the note. No answers, of course, because most of it is where do you draw the line. But I think they're reasonable questions to ask, although maybe framed a little bit too miserably. Let's see what this is saying then. So this is October as well, so this is a similar kind of time frame. And we're talking politics here apparently. People who vote towards the right tend to have higher wealth, higher power, higher consumption, place a decent amount of value in the above in regards to success and self-worth. I would also add some people don't have these things but are convinced to vote that way. So not necessarily. Tend to, we'll put, have a tendency to. So if under stress, blame is placed on people unlike them, so this will be the out group, tends to be people not from their country. Why is that thingy in the out group? Needs a hyphen, of course. This tendency to associate and attribute sources of stress as being from others leads to a propensity towards nationalism / patriotism. And a strong, but usually smaller sphere of tribalism / compassion / circle of care. People towards the left tend to be the opposite in this regard, and even if they have high wealth, power, consumption, this tends to pale in comparison to their contemporaries who are voting towards the right. Well, not necessarily voting, but could be in politics towards the right themselves. Tends to associate stress, this is talking about people from the left generally, as being from climate change and other environmental variables if stress is attributed to others, then there's usually a recognition of other factors playing a role in their beliefs / actions, or should I say reactions. Apparently I wasn't doing that back then. Terrible. This lends itself to a more globalistic rather than a smaller tribalistic outlook, because globalistic could be considered still tribalistic, just with a larger tribe. Less / no nationalism or patriotism. I'm going to focus on collective. Again, I forgot to put the but action. To mitigate sources of stress, causes of climate change, for example. These are obviously general rules of thumb, and there's a lot more nuance involved. I'm glad I wrote that because I was thinking that throughout the entirety of writing that. Ah dear. let's see what we got now. That must be a song. That's nothing to do with anything. Another one from October 2020. Capitalism is a mental and environmental illness that perpetuates itself through the installation and propagation of mental and further environmental illness. I hope I explain what I meant by this, because it's been a while. In terms of what came first, not that it really matters. It is a bit of a chicken and the egg scenario. Which came first, the mental... We'll discover as to whether I still believe this or not. So I really want to read Yanis Varoufakis's book on techno-feudalism and how he thinks we've kind of moved away from capitalism. So maybe it doesn't perpetuate itself, maybe it does eat itself. But yeah, it's hard to say what the hell I meant because it's been a few years. So which came first, the mental illness or the environmental? Probs, the environmental, since our neurology is a result of the interaction between the two. So let's see what I meant. Here we go. So illness is resource hoarding / wastage / encouragement of more and more consumption in order to generate more profits. Manufactures life dissatisfaction. I can't get no. So manufactures life dissatisfaction and desperation and crime / other maladaptive coping mechanisms, because obviously crime in a lot of cases, well, in all cases, actually, it's hard. You can't say in all cases. In a lot of cases, it's either a mental illness or an environmental illness, because it could be a strategy to try and alleviate financial stress, for example, which would be an environmental illness. And potentially mental illness if there are other viable strategies available. You know, context is key there. Manufactures dissatisfaction and discontentment. Because if we're content, then we consume less, because we'll mainly or entirely consume necessities. If we're unhappy, one of our coping mechanisms is to buy luxuries in the hopes that it'll make us happy. More luxuries purchased with more profits and more ecological / biological destruction, of course, because that always comes along with it. And that coping mechanism is encouraged, of course, because more profits is the name of the game. We all love profits here in capitalism. And in techno-feudalism, if that's what it is. Okay, so that's the end of that note. Apparently I did quite a few in October 2022. Because there wasn't much else to do. Did I say 2022? 2020. Capitalism fetishizes. They're saying it's got a... No. I'll leave that as is. and then probably look at it later and be like, what have I written? Fetishize. The more I look at it, the worse it looks. Don't look away. Capitalism fetishizes. Fetish. Oh god, I've lost the ability to speak. I shouldn't have done this. Started this so late. Fetishizes. There we go. Fetishizes. The more I say it, the less it sounds like a word as well. Growth, productivity, individualism, competition or serious competition, consumption, inadvertently, and in some capitalists' cases, intentionally fetishizes individual / systemic stress / pressure / turbulence / chaos. I do like a bit of chaos though. Leads to maladaptive coping mechanisms which feed into further stress / pressure / turbulence / chaos. Facilitates and perpetuates the slave owner / slave paradigm / dynamic. And you probably wouldn't use the word slave, but there is a vast disparity in power and freedom. Manufacture discontent. It's got a C in there. I see that something is missing. Discontent. To create more consumption and profits for those more towards the slave owner end of the socio-economic spectrum. Fetishizes. Another one from October 2020. So the shift from hunter gatherer lifestyle to agriculture culture, the ability to amass / hoard resources, has led to an unjust and often cruel power dynamic / hierarchy. Slave owner versus slave to varying degrees. And the flourishment of a lot of negative human traits / coping mechanisms. How is flourishment not a word? Let's open off his load of crap. But it is free and it allows us to write, so I do appreciate it. Though anyone watching or reading this probably it doesn't. Alright. It's such a shame we got this transition so wrong when the shift could have been so much more positive and utopic. Or actually, I'll put utopia inducing. Or at least facilitating the transition to a more utopic, okay, there we go, use the word utopic, lifestyle / world. But yeah, here we are anyway. stress, turbulence, chaos, and change. I probably should do and change. More stress usually leads to more rapid change. Part of the problem at the moment is that the stress has been lifted from the slave class just enough that they tolerate being a slave and don't put much if any effort into doing anything about it, with some people even defending their lack of freedom as if it were a positive. Can't remember any specific examples of that, but also the labels have changed. Now it tends to be employer, employees, so it's employer, employee is the new label, are the new labels. And obviously the conditions are a lot better. But I think I mentioned this in another video. As in that note. About, yeah, so as the conditions improve, it kind of reduces the impetus for change. Much like a chemical reaction as it reaches towards equilibrium. Ah, this is a little cup of tea. And I guess so you could use the old Aldous Huxley's Brave New World thing about getting people to either not recognise that they're slaves or that they enjoy their slavery. That's a good book. I need to reread that. Well, I'm just going to knock out all the notes from October 2020 because they all seem relatively related. Slaves are encouraged into behaviours that cause more slavery, including the perpetuation of their own. So consumption seeking, possessions, services, shares, etc. Shares in the current system incentivize growth, which includes more compulsory work and therefore less freedom and autonomy. So yeah, it's essentially investing in investing in the same paradigm, investing in perpetuating the same dynamic. So I'm writing down investing in perpetuating the same dynamic / paradigm. Yeah. So people from all across the socio-economic spectrum are essentially investing in perpetuating the same dynamic. Yeah, obviously the people further up the socio-economic spectrum in terms of having more wealth will be able to invest more so in it. And if people are benefiting from the system, they are more likely to want to maintain it, I would imagine. How many more have I done in there? Yeah, this is also related by the look of it. So another one from October 2020. Whenever we spend money, we deprive others of freedom and autonomy through the creation of compulsory work, facilitate maladaptive coping mechanisms, increase pollution. Every time we spend money, we therefore decrease people's quality and length of life, as well as mean other people will never experience life in the future. Or some other people. Some other people. Yeah, so once again, as I say, further back in time we go, the more bleak my notes sound, so apologies. Yeah. In the future, as they won't exist. Whenever we spend money, we also deprive ourselves of freedom. Slash autonomy. Because the creation of more compulsory work means that people are busy spending their time and energy on that, whatever it is we've forced them into, rather gonna head myself with the spaces here, I think. Than being able to share the workload we bear. We also redirect people's time and energy to whatever we're spending money on, rather than potentially more positive things, although also more negative things, so there is that. Such as research for treatments and cures for illnesses, the logistics of solving poverty and malnourishment, etc. Ultimately, spending money, often, if not always, involves the degradation of people's, including our own, quality and length of life, and the degradation of the ecosystem, and therefore the longevity of our and other species of sentience. Not only that, but a lot of things we spend money on are things we've been manipulated into wanting by the advertisement slash marketing industry, and don't actually bring any value to our lives except for the short-lived buzz of having something new. A short-lived buzz comparable to that of one we get when we take a drug. Hence the term shopaholic. Wow. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Fucking hell. No wonder I was so... Oh, for a start, I'm boiling right now. It's roasting. No wonder I wasn't feeling too great back then. Jeez. Right, so that's one perspective, which is true in certain respects. We do deprive. We also, the problem with the system at the moment is that it's set up in a way that we're encouraged to spend money in order to keep the economy going, because spending money actually gives people a little bit of freedom or autonomy, because it provides work and therefore wages. That's obviously not an ideal system, because if we're being encouraged to spend money, we're being encouraged to consume, we're encouraged to burn through resources, which means we're encouraged to pollute, etc., etc. So all these negatives we're encouraged to do. So it's a bad system. Obviously, when we spend money, we also can provide ourselves with some enjoyment, shall we say, because we have to consume to live, and doing things we enjoy tends to involve some kind of consumption. So this was obviously a very bleak kind of outlook, which I maybe focused in on a bit too much. But I mean, I think it's important to think about. Just maybe not for too long, or maybe at least balance it with a bit of the positives. Because yeah, there are fun things to spend money on. But yeah, it's good to think about the negatives as well, because maybe that'll kind of, it's a more balanced view, I guess. But yeah, that explains one part of why I wasn't feeling too good a few years back, and maybe why it's taken us so long to start to feel alright. But yeah, I'm going to end it there anyway, because I'm absolutely roasting. It's 1 a.m. I've got work today. So hope you have a good rest of your day anyway. Apologies if you're in a good mood until I decide to ramble into this rubbish. But yeah, take care everyone. Peace.